Stories are usually about extraordinary feats like creating a world-changing invention or climbing a difficult mountain. But for many people, bravery is simply about surviving one more day, protecting a sibling or mother from physical abuse, fighting the system to help a child, or even providing for their families against all difficulties. These silent acts of courage reflect a different kind of leadership. And today, I want to share the stories of three individuals who took control of their own lives and became leaders in their own right, shaping not only their future, but also impacting the lives of those around them. My first story is about a 12-year-old girl, Ria. Ria grew up in terrible circumstances. Her father was a violent alcoholic and would often beat her mother. Now, Ria has a younger sister whom she tried to protect from this violence, but she couldn't. Sometimes when things got really bad at home, she would take her little sister out for a walk. But at night, there was no escape. They lived in a small house in a crowded place, so naturally everyone in the neighborhood could hear what was going on at their house. Now, Ria was unable to cope with this hellish treatment day after day, and so her anger and frustration exploded in other ways. She would pick fights with kids in the community, steal, bully, and act like she didn't care about anything. So naturally, the community labeled her as a troublemaker. Now, Ria was constantly angry, dejected, and demotivated. Because of her behavior, she didn't have any friends, and that only alienated her more from the society. Soon, she was convinced that she was indeed good for nothing. Now, when we first met Ria, it was clear that she was struggling. She immediately made enemies at the school and would pick fights, bully, steal, same behavior like that with the neighborhood kids. Because she thought that being mean was the only way to deal with others. The feelings that she felt at home were being projected at the school too. Now, even though Ria wasn't particularly interested in or good at studies, she was very sharp. And when she got an opportunity to explore her talents, we were all pleasantly surprised by how great she was at almost everything hands-on. She excelled in carpentry, tailoring, beauty parlor work, jewelry making, painting, and so on. She excelled in so many vocations that she slowly started believing herself that she was worth something. And soon, she was creating amazing products that were selling like hot cakes at the school shop, and that gave her a real sense of self-worth. Now, one day, Ria came to the school all bruised up and hurt, like it was clear that someone had beaten her. When we asked her what happened, she shocked us by smiling and saying that I stepped in when my father was beating my mother, and I stopped him. Now, even though she was badly hurt, her eyes were filled with pride. Now, it was not easy for a 12-year-old to step in between violence that she has seen her whole life, stand up to her father, who's also the provider for the family, tell him to stop and protect her mother and sister by extension. Ria's earning abilities gave her the confidence to tell her mother that she would also help the family put food on the table. Thus, Ria went from being a troublemaker to becoming a leader and a role model, not just for her sister and her mother, but also for the other women and girls in the community. Now, grassroots change happens when individuals like Ria, and a 12-year-old in this case, are supported and strengthened to take matters into their own hands and take a stand against what is wrong. If we want real meaningful changes across millions of such households, we need to nurture leaders like Ria. My second story is about Deepika, a teacher whose belief in a child completely transformed his life. Now, Rohan had had a very difficult childhood. His mother passed away when he was just 7 years old, and he was living with his alcoholic father and aged grandmother. Now, there was no one at home to care for him or even look after him, so he mostly had to fend for himself, almost like an orphan. Soon, he got into bad company, and by age 11, he started using drugs. At one point, He even tried to break into the school to steal devices like tablets to buy more drugs. When the teachers found out, they immediately decided that he was a lost cause and they suspended him with plans to expel him. Now they were worried that he would be a bad influence on the other students. But Deepika, who knew his backstory, did not give up on him. She knew that kicking the kid out of the school would not solve the problem. Instead, it would make things even worse. What Rohan needed at that time was a little help, a little hope, and someone who believed in him. Deepika fought for him and finally managed to convince the teachers to give Rohan one more chance. With her support, Rohan's life began to change. For the first time in his life, he actually put in effort into schoolwork and the results were amazing. He jumped 3 levels in English and maths in just 1 year. And not just that, he became so responsible that he was appointed as the class monitor. The very tablets that he had tried to steal were not the same devices that he used to teach younger students, and he was trusted with handling them too. Rohan soon joined the NCC program, and because of his excellent performance, he was made the cadet commander. Now, he leads school assembly every day with NCC, and not only is he incredibly disciplined, but he also ensures that the other students follow suit. In fact, when I asked him if there was anything we could do to improve our program, he said that we should introduce NCC from class 3 so that children from difficult background like him could learn discipline early in life. So he was already thinking about how to help other children like him. Rohan's aim now is to serve his country as a Navy officer. But the real transformation wasn't just in him. It spread through the whole community. By supporting him, by believing in him, Deepika sent a clear message that no child is beyond saving. Now the same community that had once branded him as a criminal, now looked at him as a promising child with a bright future. And all these happened because this one teacher believed in him that made him believe in himself, and that literally changed his life. Now, instead of being a liability to the society, Rohan is not only an asset, but also a role model. This story shows how powerful a teacher's impact could be in the life of a child. We need to recognize and honor thousands of leaders like Deepika who are quietly making a difference, one child at a time. My last story is about a mother. For a young child, the most influential person is their mother, and mothers have immense strength. Seema felt trapped in her marriage. Now her husband always used to drink, but of late he was drinking every day and beating her brutally in front of their children. Now he didn't just hurt her, he punished the kids too. He would throw their books out of the window, stop them from going to school, even stop them from eating at times or going outside to use the bathroom. Now at first, the neighbors tried to help. But every time they stepped in, hoping to stop the abuse, it only got worse. The more they intervened, the more violent he became. So that at one point of time, even the neighbors were like, no, we can't get involved in this domestic mess. Seema was terrified for herself and for her children. She was worried that if she stayed, then something worse could happen. But what could she do? She had no money, no support, and no way to break this endless cycle of violence. Her heart would break every time she looked at her kids, knowing that they were growing up in fear with no future in sight. One day, Seema reached her breaking point. She had endured so much, and she just couldn't bear to watch her children suffer any longer. She was scared but determined and took the hardest decision of her life. She left with her children. She walked away from the only home she knew, not knowing what they would eat or where they would sleep or even how they would survive. But all she knew was that they had to get out of that miserable existence. With nothing but her courage, Seema started doing odd jobs, housekeeping late into the night, scrubbing floors, washing utensils, anything that she could find to make their ends meet. She worked tirelessly day after day, doing whatever it took to provide for her children. At times, She would feel weak, tired and exhausted, but she still pushed through because the children needed her to. Eventually, she got a job at a local school as a cook. And even though it wasn't much, it was enough. It was enough to give her a sense of independence, enough for her children to feel safe, and enough to believe, even if just for a little while, that they might have a future. Slowly, things began to change. Her children, who once lived in constant fear, started to smile again. They were going to school, learning, and for the first time in years, they felt safe. Her daughter, who was once too scared to even dream, now talks about their future, about how when she grows up, she is going to buy a house for her mother, a real home where they never have to be afraid again. In quiet moments, Seema couldn't believe how far they have come. She was so close to giving up, so close to believing that nothing would ever get better, but here she was, standing strong. Her little girl looked up to her, not because of her education or because of her social status, but because of her strength, because she chose to fight, to live, and to survive. Now, Seema's story is one of incredible resilience, but it is also one of quiet leadership. By choosing to live, by choosing to protecting her children's safety, and by choosing to fight and starting a life from scratch, Seema became more than a survivor. She became a leader. Her actions showed her children what strength looks like, and she set an example for the entire community as to what it means to take control of one's own destiny. Now, these stories show how courage, heroism, and leadership can take many forms. Whether it is a young girl standing up to her abusive father, or a mother protecting her children from the violent cycle of abuse, or a teacher whose belief in a child helps him overcome his addiction, leadership isn't always about grand heroic acts. It is about everyday individuals facing unimaginable challenges and choosing to act instead of tolerating. These grassroots leaders get overlooked because their impact isn't always visible beyond their immediate communities, but their contributions are essential for making real change happen. In many ways, they are the real agents of change. We need millions of them to lead the way, not because it is a nice idea, but because it's the only way to bring about real lasting change at the grassroots level. Thank you.